Hey everybody, and welcome back. We are back to the DLF Trade Show on the DLF YouTube channel. Russ and Addison, we're back to use you. Thank you everyone for submitting some listener trades for us to talk about today. Addison didn't need to use the DLF Trade Finder, but he still used that DLF Trade Analyzer to help us analyze these trades one step further. Because what we think isn't everything. What the analyzer says isn't everything, but put them together, that's what everything's made of, baby. Right
Yes,
there.
sir. And Russ, the most important thing for today, if you were watching this on Thursday, is we have football tonight.
We have football tonight.
Like actual, not preseason, like actual football.
Not OTAs, not preseason. We're talking regular season.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's a good game too, Chiefs and Ravens. Dude, I feel like we should be more excited for this, but I'm tired.
Well, yes, but also it's so rare. Game one really lives up to what you want it to when it is teams like this. I'm leaving my excitement at yay football's back. I'm leaving zero expectations on what this game should actually be.
42-38 final score. Not going to say who wins.
I was about to say you're just leaving that part hanging. Okay.
Nope, not going to say who wins. That's just the final score. Henry's going to score. Lamar's going to score a rushing touchdown. Rice and Kelsey and Pacheco will all three score. Andrews is going to score. Can't forget about that too.
Wow.
And Nelson Aguilar will score. That's my deep call. Nelson Aguilar finds the end zone.
Nelson. If he's right,
I wonder what his anytime touchdown odds are, like plus 10,000.
if Addison just somehow called every touchdown for tonight's game, I think we retire.
Probably. I should make a parlay for that, just for the heck of it. I'm going to toss like 10 cents on it and we'll see what happens.
Let's get to listener trades.
All right.
Okay, so the first we have two trades. We have back-to-back trades from JB10 in a 12-team Superflex league. They are rebuilding. So they sent away Jalen Waddle for Tank Dell and Trey Benson. This sounds a little familiar.
It did. May or may have been why I included it. Of the familiarity of it so much.
So Jalen Waddle in at 488.5, Tank Dell 307, Trey Benson 148 for a total of 455. Again, this is extremely close enough. If we had to do like a pick swap because we didn't have one piece to really, but Trey Benson could have been that piece to me. Like, this is absolutely fine to me. I believe in Trey Benson. I'm a fan of the player. I like the situation, even though it will take some time for him to get the work from Connor. But Tank Dell's going to be very, very good, and Jalen Waddle's also going to be very, very, very good. So I think this is a very good trade to diversify. That's always to break down your larger asset into two young and nice potential assets. Like, this is I can start competing next season kind of move.
Yep. Yeah, this is fantastic, especially from the context that he is rebuilding, and he was able to, like you said, break down Waddle into Dell and Benson, two guys who, I think Dell can make an impact this year, but we'll see with him coming off of the broken leg and getting shot a couple months ago, and with him being the wide receiver 3 this year. But if you look at next year with possibly Stephon Diggs gone, next year for Trey Benson with possibly James Conner gone. Like, this is a fantastic 2025 move to gain a lot of value next offseason and a lot of potential points as well, like you said, to potentially compete in 2025. I love this.
But also love the reverse. Also, like, I would pay this for Jalen Waddle. Like, we both believe that Waddle is way more than he was last year, and he still wasn't that bad last year. He just wasn't great.
Yep.
So this is a good trade, clearly, because we ended up doing something insanely similar a few weeks ago.
Even if I was forced to. But yes, correct.
Was leaving that part out. Next trade is, apparently he had both Dolphins wide receivers. Sends away Tyreek Hill for Devonta Smith, Ladd McConkey, and a 25 second. Tyreek Hill in at 481.4. Jalen Waddle worth more than Tyreek Hill feels a little spicy.
A little bit.
But Tyreek Hill 41.4, Devonta 407, Lad McConkey 177, the second at 94 for a total of 677.1. Like, I feel like the second doesn't need to be there, and this still gets done. In which case, good job selling Tyreek Hill. I know that we are entering point scoring season, so it should cost a little more today than it did 3 days ago to get Tyreek Hill. This is still feels very strong. McConkey still feels like a late first. Like, you're not getting him for, like, you have to give up a 25 first if you're giving up just picks to get McConkey. So this Devonta first and a second to move to Tyreek feels like a lot.
Yeah. I think you brought up a good point with that we are entering point scoring season. So, maybe that was something that if you couldn't get a deal done because people seem to be lowballing you on offers for Tyreek, you're just like, all right, well, I'm just going to wait till he puts up his first 150-yard and 2-touchdown game. Then his price is going to go up, especially to the contenders when they find out that, especially with an injury goes down, maybe somebody underperforms or doesn't break out that they were expecting. Tyreek Hill's value can rise in season. But I do like this just in general from a rebuilding side too. It's very similar to the other one where you're breaking down into two other assets that could gain value. I feel like everybody that watches this knows that I'm not a Lad McConkey fan, but I at least understand the process, and I understand that if I'm wrong on Lad McConkey, this trade would look phenomenal for sure. If he is actually the one for Justin Herbert, does have a great rookie season. And Devonta Smith, I think, is a really good buy right now too for the similar to like Jalen Waddle, where I feel like everybody just looks towards the one and they just kind of disregard the number two.
Yep.
I think that's going to happen with Smith and now within a Kellen Moore offense as well.
Yeah, and thinking about it from the other side again, just real quick, if I'm a competing team and I have a chance to go get Tyreek Hill, like, and I'm willing to give up Smith and McConkey,
I
the
do
second,
this so easily for Tyreek.
I'm not gonna let that second hold me back, even if it does feel a little strong. Especially if that's my second, and I'm saying it's gonna be the 212. Who cares? Take it. Give me Tyreek.
Yep, go
Okay.
win a championship.
Next from Joel Aviles, 12-team superflex, 2 PPR for tight end reception, and plus 0.25 points per first down. Kyle Pitts, Jonathan Brooks, Michael Penix, and Jalen Hyatt for Jahmyr Gibbs, George Kittle, and Mike Williams. Kyle Pitts, 385, Jonathan Brooks, 230. No, sorry, 297 for Jonathan Brooks. Michael Penix, 105. Jalen Hyatt, 15 for a total of 802. Jahmyr Gibbs, 627.5. George Kittle, 210. Mike Williams, 30 for a total of 868. Contending team that upgrades Brooks to Gibbs and also has Bowers. So they're giving up Pitts, but still have Bowers. Premium is going to help Pitts a lot more than it helps Kittle. Kittle's not a volume guy. Kittle's more of a after the catch, which means the 0.25 for first downs will be very helpful for Kittle. But man, like, if you and I are even close to what Pitts is going to be like, he might be the most valuable player in this trade at the end of the season. Like, if Gibbs is good and not great and falls back to like maybe RB6-ish, and Pitts goes up to a top 5 tight end in this heavy of a boost for tight ends, like, I know it's a lot of very situational things, plus what Jonathan Brooks can be by the end of the year. I get that this is absolutely what they're saying. This is an upgrade to go get Gibbs. But this, to me, is treating Pitts a little... This is trading Pitts on his current value, not what his value can be tomorrow because of what that team should be. And I can't do that. Especially, like, what if Jonathan Brooks is Jahmyr Gibbs at the end of the season?
I mean, well,
I mean, not to say that there's like... Jonathan Brooks is going to get the job there by the end of the season. We've seen plenty of running backs come in, missing a couple of games, and then just destroying the world. Like, they don't need to be playing the entire season.
Mm-hmm.
If Jonathan Brooks and Jahmyr Gibbs are both top 6 running backs at the end of the season, which I think is very likely, assuming Jonathan Brooks is very, like, better than good, but it doesn't need to be great because he's young. I get the move. I get wanting to We were talking about it before we started recording with our lineup in the Watchers League, where we have too many decisions to make. So it's nice to consolidate some of your value, which I get that's what they're doing here. But to me, this doesn't feel like getting a ransom for Pitts and Brooks. And that's what I need for moving a real, like, I would take Pitts pretty easily over Kittle, like the analyzer shows. Like, moving a tight end in this scoring should be next to impossible.
Yeah. I feel like this trade really does hinge on what you believe on Kyle Pitts. You and I both believe very strongly that he could have a massive breakout, especially with we've had all this training camp news that he's being utilized more in the short yardage area, and we know that he has the ability and the athleticism to be, uh, you know, down the field kind of threat as well. But if he's being utilized as like as more of a PPR kind of tight end and he's getting 85, 90, close to 100 like receptions by the end of the year, even if they're not, massively long ball touchdowns, that in a 2 PPR tight end premium, if he's averaging like 7 or 8 receptions a game, like that's crazy. That's
Yeah.
absolutely insane in the scoring. And then, the extra point per first down, I'm sure a good decent percentage of those receptions will be first downs too. It really does come down to what you believe on Pitts, and the Brandon Ayuk re-signing with the Niners news definitely hurts George Kittle. So that probably had there was hope at least that
It,
if Ayuk had left, that Kittle
yeah.
would soak up more of that. So I don't know when this trade was necessarily done, if it was before or after, and there was still hope that Ayuk was going to be traded for Kittle's value, then sure. But I just believe so strongly in Pitts. I've said it all summer that I believe that Jonathan Brooks will be a top 5 dynasty running back by next offseason, like
Yeah.
what we did with Javonte after his rookie year or J.K. Dobbins after his rookie year. And just with like how many not young running backs there are in the league right now, like is going to bounce up there almost purely out of necessity, let alone if he actually looks good and has a Jonathan Taylor type second half or a Jahmyr Gibbs type second half, or, just looks like he should have been a first round rookie running back. And,
Yeah.
that's, and then you get the upside shot on Michael Penix too. Like that's not nothing.
Nothing.
He's definitely the 5th best asset in this deal, you know? Like I would strongly rather have him than Mike Williams, and Jalen Hyatt doesn't really matter to me. So Penix is very firmly the 5th best asset and a very
Yeah.
good lottery ticket. So
I,
I do agree. It does hinge on what you believe on Pitts.
but I will say, if we are thinking insanely short term, like when week 1 starts and I hit that submit lineup button, I want to feel better about my lineup. Yes.
Gibbs is absolutely going to make you
Gibbs
feel
will do
better.
that. And if that's what you're going for, you did it. And the fact that we're struggling shows that it's close, right? We're not
Yes.
just saying give me Pitts. So like this is really bias coming in strong.
This is where I believe if you are a contender, I feel like it might make more sense to make smaller moves. And,
Yeah.
if you are contending and you're like, look, Jonathan Brooks is going to be out for 4 weeks because he's on the pup. I want to make my team as strong as I can, get those early wins because we know how crucial they are once we hit bye weeks and we get into the injury laden parts of the NFL season. So get those early wins. How can you trade for Jerome Ford? How can you go just buy Chuba Hubbard to buy you some time?
Yeah.
Go buy like a cheap Joe Mixon or Aaron Jones or James Conner. Like those would be moves that I would rather do as a contender than try to see how can I blow up, you know, basically like 15% of my starting lineup and also lose some dynasty value in age by shifting over to, losing 7 years at the tight end position. Um, losing a little bit of age from Jahmyr Gibbs as well, losing the age of Michael Penix and going over to a 29-year-old on a new team coming off of an ACL. There's just I feel like there's more optimal moves to be made as a contender. Not saying that this was wrong, just that I feel like there was something better that could have maybe been done.
All right, let's move on to TallyHo 10-team super flex. Jonathan Taylor for Xavier Worthy and a 25 first. I don't care that they listed the 25 first. Give me Xavier Worthy on top of that one. The team selling JT is rebuilding, so they sent Jonathan Taylor at 489.3 for the 25 first at 294 and Xavier Worthy 233 for a total of 527. So even enough, and I'm down with this. If I'm rebuilding, I want Jonathan Taylor off my team. I'm a big Xavier Worthy fan, and honestly, it doesn't hurt to have Hollywood missing the first couple of games or at least this week, for Xavier to come out and show what he's going to be able to do in that intermediate to deep game, because we know he can do that. And then just stay on the field and get on the field and do more and more and more. And then maybe they just don't play Hollywood anymore. Um, but value wise, I agree. I like Hollywood. He's not going to do nothing, I know.
Yeah.
But I have so many Worthy shares. Um, I like this move. I like this move in both directions, to be honest. Again, we have a lot of very good rebuilding to competing trades in this. If I'm competing and I'm sending my 25 first, and let's face it, Worthy, even though I really like him, I have a lot of, we were talking before the show about how many JSN shares are that one last player after your lineup is set. You feel so sad having JSN not starting, but you have a better lineup. And I have a lot of that same situation with Xavier Worthy, where he's not in my starting lineup right now. So if I'm in a situation where I'm not starting Xavier Worthy and I have my 25 first, and someone wants to give me Jonathan Taylor, who I think has a pretty easy chance, assuming health, finishing as a top 5 fantasy back this season, yeah. But also rebuilding, give me the 21-year-old wide receiver and a future first. I mean, again, this is a very good trade. I really like this trade.
Yep. It's a perfect rebuilding versus contending team. And honestly, right now, as a rebuilder, is the best time to start getting these deals done, because there is never a time in the calendar year or the fantasy offseason and dynasty offseason where people are more overly confident in their ability to compete than this week. Week one, you're setting your lineups and you're thinking, oh man, if I just got this one extra dude or one extra something, I could pull this off and I could go deep into the playoffs, win a championship. And they're not counting or accounting for risk of injuries, or Ricky Pearsall gets shot at a bar or something like that. Life happens, NFL happens, weird stuff's going to happen. Your players are going to underperform that you thought were going to perform, and it's just going to be really, really weird. So if you are a rebuilding team and you still have some of these assets, like a Jonathan Taylor, like a Tyreek Hill, like a Devontae Adams or anything like that, it's a fantastic time to just start massively sending out offers.
WestCoastChiefer 12-team Superflex. Jaden Daniels and Jalen Warren for Jahmyr Gibbs and Rashee Rice. Jaden Daniels, 656. Jalen Warren, 84 for a total of 740. Jahmyr Gibbs, 619. Rashee Rice, 176. Total 795. So this is a little in favor of the Jahmyr Gibbs. Other QBs are Josh Allen, Caleb Williams, and Brock Purdy. All right, I'm going to talk about that more than anything else.
Yep.
Don't be willing to sell your guys a little cheaper just because they're depth on your team. The chances are Jaden Daniels is starting for that other team. It's not about what they're worth to you, it's what it's worth to them. I don't care that Jaden Daniels is your 1, 2, 3, 4th quarterback for you. I still want more. I get that you're getting 2 very good players. You're going to score a lot of points with Jahmyr Gibbs and Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice not going to end up getting any games taken away from him this season. And even if he ends up losing 3 games next season, who cares in the dynasty aspect of the world, as long as he stops being an idiot. I really like Jaden Daniels, and it would make me really hesitant to do this. But you really are upgrading at running back without sending one away.
I'm going to play the devil's advocate for what you just said, because I thought that same exact thing. But then I looked at the value that they got on Rashee Rice for this. They have Rashee Rice in here at 175 in the analyzer, which I think is really low. Like, for reference, that is 1 spot behind McConkey, 2 spots behind Amari, 1 spot above Mike Evans, and 2 spots ahead of Christian Kirk at the wide receiver position. I think that if Rashee Rice comes out, even if he ends up getting suspended at the end of the year, or if we have some clarity on a suspension for 2025, if Rashee Rice comes out and solidifies himself as the wide receiver 1 on this team this year, his value is going to rise tremendously, up to probably above where he was to end the year last year, and through the NFL playoffs when Rice was just cooking with 8 receptions for 80 to 100 yards and a touchdown every other week. If he does that and just gets up to the Romo Dunze, Devonta Smith range of analyzer values for wide receivers, you are adding an extra 250 points to that side. Like and so that's the devil's advocate argument for that. I firmly believe that Jaden Daniels could also mitigate that by also climbing in 250 analyzer points by being a top 10 fantasy quarterback this year. And now he's being talked about as a potential top 7, top 8 dynasty quarterback. So there is that. I don't think that's happening to Jalen Warren, though. I want the Jahmyr Gibbs and Rashee Rice side because I understand the like what you were saying about it's not what Daniels is worth to you, it's what they're worth to them. But I think that this is a good deal personally to go out and get Gibbs and Rice and add actual points to your lineup while also having the ability to gain a lot of dynasty value too.
All right, but let's move on to Gambit's 14-team Superflex trade. 25 first and 25 third for Jonathan Brooks. This is their first Superflex league, and they're questioning whether this was a bad trade. Being new to Superflex, did they undervalue the 25 first? Roster: Kyler and Gino, Mixon, Monty, Moss, Chase, Olave, Deontay, Rome, Andrews, and Henry. 14 team. That's a competing team in a 14-team league for sure. So no. And you're going to end the season by everything I said before about Jonathan Brooks. Like, I think this was great. It's a little risky. Like, you need some stuff to work your way. If you don't make the playoffs, this will feel very tough for you, seeing your pick get that early. But I think you have a pretty good shot of making this, even if it ends up at like the 108, 109, you'll feel great getting Jonathan Brooks with that.
Yep. I think the only thing that I want to mention for this is because it's a 14-team super flex, quarterbacks are worth a tremendous amount in this because not everybody's going to have a starting backup QB3.
Yeah.
So maybe there was something different to use that 25 first on by going and getting another quarterback and having a positional advantage there because his QB2 right now is Geno Smith, which I don't know. I don't know what the longevity looks like. I don't know what the production even looks like for this year. So
Yeah.
maybe there was something different to use your 25 first with than to go out and get Jonathan Brooks. So that would be the only thing that I would bring up for this trade specifically. But other than that, I don't think that you undervalued your 25 first. I would very easily take the Jonathan Brooks side on this. I just wonder if that was the most optimal usage of that 25 first, to where maybe you could have. And it's not to say that you can't make another move. Like you could go and you could trade, Jonathan Brooks and Romo Dunze, and then go up and get, Caleb or Kyler or like anything like that, and then there you fixed it to where you essentially just traded Odunze in a first for that QB2. There's that's the only
Yeah,
thing
you
I
have a
would
lot
say
of
on it.
pivot room.
Yep.
You have a lot of pivot room with this team. Now, since you don't have your first, you can't blow up your team. You can't like full on rebuild, but you have Kyler. I mean, you could move Gino, assuming Gino keeps the job. If you decided that you don't want to compete this season anymore, but you don't want to be too bad, you can move Gino, Mixon, Monty, Moss, Deontay, and Andrews, but still pull back young wide receivers, young anything. Like if you can get the trade, keep Brooks, then add Trey Benson to it. You have a lot of wiggle room with this team. In a 14-team league, it looks like you have strong enough studs with enough players to fill a starting lineup and still do well enough.
Mm-hmm.
So even if things don't turn your way and you get a little worried, like you can move some of these players, still keep scoring points so your first doesn't get too early, but still set yourself up real good for the future. Because again, I believe in Jonathan Brooks, especially in that Carolina offense. Okay, next, open for business. 12-team Superflex start 9. Caleb Williams and a second for AJ Brown, a 25 first, and JJ McCarthy. They have Joe Burrow and Jaden Daniels at QB. So this is another person selling off their third quarterback or a quarterback because they have too many. Caleb Williams in at 729, a 25 second at 94 for a total of 822. AJ Brown 648, a 25 first, 294, and JJ McCarthy 283, total of 1225. So this is fulfilling the many taxes that we talk about: overpaying for the best player, overpaying because it's 3-2, overpaying because Oh no, you're getting a quarterback back, but it's a
You are, but you aren't, depending on if you're
yeah.
competing or not for 2024.
So yeah, so hmm, hmm. AJ Brown in a first get you Caleb.
um, I I think AJ Brown for Caleb is a discussion. Let
All right, I'm
alone
not there
adding a
yet.
first on top of that, or
Like I
doing
don't
the
think
first second swap.
not to say that JJ is worth a second or anything, but like, uh,
This is so easily the AJ Brown side to me. It's not even funny.
yeah, yeah,
Because
you know,
let me ask you this: if you were a contending team and you just happen to have your first still and you have an extra playoff first that you just somehow acquired by being smart, and maybe you acquired it 2 years ago, um, and you're contending, would you trade that 25 first for JJ McCarthy?
oh yeah, I'd give up a late first for McCarthy.
Okay, yeah, because I would too. I've been asked that a couple times over the past, like, basically since McCarthy got hurt and went on IR for the year. What I would pay for McCarthy, and I've said that I think that he is a fantastic asset to go get for a late 2025 first, because you're not getting a quarterback of his caliber in next year's class that late. Like the good ones, like if Shador Sanders ends up being a top 3 pick, he's not going to be a late first. If Drew Aller ends up, hopefully being the Heisman this year and winning Penn State a national championship, he's not going to be a late first, or anything Quinn Ewers or anything like that. And Ewers might just not be as good. Maybe he's like Bo Nix next year. Then we're taking JJ McCarthy over Bo Nix this year, so I would do it again next year, especially depending on where Ewers actually lands. So I would take. I see this as Caleb for AJ Brown and 2 firsts, and I'm taking AJ Brown and 2 firsts easily.
You win me. You win. That's right. Yeah.
Yay. Especially because he doesn't necessarily need Caleb. And I understand that whole thing comes into, we talk about that all the time of, still getting the right value. This
Right.
is
You're
more than the right
still
value.
getting AJ Brown in your lineup without sacrificing a spot in your lineup to
And he
get it.
got an extra first, and he got JJ McCarthy to be his QB3 next year.
Yeah, like the only thing is it'll hurt if Caleb is what we think Caleb is.
If Caleb turns into Pat Mahomes, then that's going to hurt. But
Yeah.
I think as of right now,
Yeah,
even if
you're right.
Caleb
No,
is
it's
Trevor
the AJ
Lawrence,
Brown
this is
side.
fine.
You're right. It's just hard to me to the idea of giving away Caleb without getting like if I'm not getting a quarterback that I'm going to start, I wouldn't bother getting a quarterback back. Even though getting McCarthy at this value is great because he's only going to go up once he comes back to play next year.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay, so Galaras, 12 teams, Superflex, start 9. Hey, Bo Nix. Xavier Worthy, Bo Nix, and Tyler Higbee for Drake May, a 26 first and a 25 second. They're in a multi-year rebuild and liked the younger May for upside and picks to insulate while rebuilding instead of holding players that might or might not work out. Whew. Okay, so Xavier Worthy, 233, Bo Nix, 227, Tyler Higbee, 8. For a total of 468. Drake May, 310, 26 first, 192, 25 second, 94 for a total of 595. Yeah, I see what they're saying. I hate that it's a 26 first because, man, you're pushing your rebuild back with Drake May not starting. You're at 26 first. Like this is a project you're creating for yourself. Um, I don't hate it. Value wise, I might like it actually. Like even if it's a 26 first, getting a 26 first for Bo Nix feels like a win.
Uh,
I know the analyzers
I'd
doesn't
probably see
agree.
what Bo Nix can do. I'd probably take it into the season,
Yeah, but
because I feel
like
like even if he is like Zach Wilson or Kenny Pickett, like you would have still been able to get a 2 years away first for them as rookies halfway through the year if they didn't, even if they didn't look all that great. I still feel like you could have gotten 2 years away as first round pick. And if you got a third to it, then sure. But
yeah, so Bo Nix for the 26 first and 25 second, and Worthy for May, even though May's worth more than Worthy. Like to me at this point, I think it really just I don't necessarily like it, but the answer is the May side for me.
okay, so we we were basically in agreement, because I was the same. I ran through that same thing when I was putting this in the analyzer. Of I still ended up, my final answer on this was I will take the Drake May in the 2026 first side, but I did not like the process or thinking that got him there on why this trade made sense. Because like and but I'm all for it, like going from Bo Nix to Drake May in terms of prospects, like and overall potential talent. I
Yeah.
would take Drake May over Bo Nix still, even with May sitting for however long he's going to be, and Bo Nix looking pretty solid in preseason. But we'll see what happens in actual, like in the actual season. But Bo Nix's values climbed, and maybe Mays has stayed steady or dropped a little bit because he's not the immediate starter, which is still not a bad thing. But like talent wise, prospect wise, I would still take May over Bo Nix. I
Yeah.
get that on board. But I don't like Worthy for a 26 first. And you're saying that you're moving down and acquiring more picks to insulate while you're rebuilding instead of holding players that might or might not work out. I feel like you could get yourself in a hamster wheel of just you are constantly going to be doing that. At some point, you've got to take a bet on some of these rookies to actually hit and blow up. You know, every single elite NFL star in the NFL right now was a rookie at some point that you had to bet on. Justin Jefferson was like the wide receiver 4 in his class that you just, if you had sold him for a 2023 or 2022 first, that is horrible. You know, I mean, and I get that, you know, if Worthy busts and he's John Ross or Jalen Rager or whoever, then yeah, then you would want the first. But you know, I feel like Worthy, in terms of the caliber of prospect that he is on the team that he landed on and the community viewing of him, is worth more than a first. That even if he doesn't come out and immediately produce, he still has a lot of things going for him on the back end that you could have taken him into the season, seen what he did, and then still, like I said, like with Bo Nix, still could have cashed out for a 2026 first in late October or November if you haven't necessarily seen what Worthy was, if you haven't seen them what you wanted to see from Xavier Worthy. It's just the hamster wheel is going to be horrible, and then that's how you turn a multi-year rebuild into a multi-year rebuild 2 years from now, and then multi-year rebuild 2 years from that. You know, it's just at some point you have to have players to produce to compete. and it's different. If it was like McConkey or Keon Coleman or Xavier Leggett, I would understand that a lot more. That's a bet against the prospect and the talent. But Worthy, I think, is an upper echelon of that, of those players. That was my rant.
And that is every word of what I was thinking. Eventually, you're going to need players, and you know you're going to have to take a gamble. No matter how safe you feel about a rookie, it's still a gamble. I mean, we've had plenty of people that were supposed to be instant all-stars suck. And we've also had third round players turn out to be first round players. Like it's, you gotta, again, the value of what you did is absolutely fine for now. I just, everything Addison said, you're just going to keep kicking the can until all of a sudden you've donated 6 years worth of buy-ins and you're still rebuilding, which, don't get me wrong, it's fun. I love rebuilding, but like, it's got to end
At
sometime.
some point there has to be an end to the journey. Then, and you only get there with that by keeping actual players and not selling them for picks constantly.
The journey of this episode has come to an end, though. That is the last trade we had on our sheet. Bam, professional transition right there. Ruining it by calling it out. But this has been the DLF Trade Show, the DLF YouTube channel. Russ Fisher, Dynasty Outhouse, Addison Hayes at AmazeHayes_. We'll catch you next time.